And we're live.
Guys, how far is Brooklyn sinking into the ocean?
I'd
Right
just like
now.
to take this moment to congratulate the Nets on their 3 championships.
Ouch.
Great job, Skip. Great job, Skip. I'm gonna bring you on some improv stuff. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are, whatever time it is for you right now. Just know that you are locked in onto the point with
Yep.
and the king. You guys know what to do. Go down there. Amazon, Apple, Spotify, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, which is hopefully where you're watching us. And we would, if you're not watching it on YouTube, you owe us some money. And I want you to pay up. Right? But thank you guys for enjoying us over the last couple of years and enjoying our fantastic guests, especially this guy right here, Nick Nurse's doppelganger. Yeah, I said it. I said it again.
No double
Right?
teams. I don't throw them.
The coach from the East Coast, the one and only Tim Roache, the man, the myth, the legend. How are you doing today, my friend?
After that introduction, I'm doing real well right now.
Skip, what's up, brother?
Oh, not much. I had a great time meeting Coach Roache in person and Kenyon and all of the above. So, yeah.
Yes, excellent meeting you everybody at the Raptors Republic event for sure.
Yeah, it was a good time. It was a good time. It was fun. Especially everybody kept taking my drinks. Anyway, but every time I went out for a smoke. But Coach, you are the man when it comes to like knowing what time it is. So I wanted to pick your brain first before we get into this. We just witnessed Jakob Poeltl coming back to the Toronto's. I swear to God, at the end of the game, they probably just gave him a ticket and said, "Yeah, you're coming back with us." But
He didn't even get on the plane, I don't think.
Yeah, he probably got on the plane with all of them. But I wanted to ask you, Coach, like seriously speaking, how well does he fit in to the Raptors with their positionless 6'9", but their diminishing area when it comes to the rim protector and having a big? How well does he fit into the Toronto Raptors? And maybe you can even say, is Masai a genius when it comes to this?
I think he's a great fit from a coaching's perspective for multiple reasons. Offensively, he's an excellent roller in the pick and roll, and he's good at reading situations like when to roll, when not to roll, especially in the drop coverage. I think as well, Poeltl doesn't need the ball. He can be that fifth option, and that will work well with the players that we do have. So like with Pascal or Fred or Scotty, Trent, OG when he comes back, Poeltl doesn't need the ball that much. He can literally, he's creating space, he's setting screens. He's a 71st percentile offensive player. DeAndre Ayton's 51st percentile. I'm not trying to so much compare their statistics from a numbers perspective, like their points and rebounds, but
Can I just ask, that's among centers?
That's amongst all players in the NBA.
Go ahead. Just cover.
And so what I'm trying to say is Poeltl does have an impact on the offensive end. It's not the most flashy stuff in the world. It's kind of boring, but it's effective at the same time. He's very, very efficient offensively, 62% from the field. How many layups and missed open shots have we missed around the rim this year? So Poeltl should be able to clean that up a little bit. Defensively, he's in the 91st percentile defensive player in the league. He is going to be able to deflect and block a lot of shots at the rim for this team moving forward. We have been saying ad nauseum how much this team needs a 7-footer. We finally have one who is more developed. That's not a knock against Koloko. He's only in his first year. But this is kind of gives Koloko a bit more time to develop. And Poeltl right now will definitely help this team defensively moving forward because he's a fairly mobile player too as well.
Can we take a timeout?
Mm-hmm.
Like to give a shout out to WeDoLaundry.ca. Right now, it's the coldest day of the year in the city of Toronto. And if you guys want to look as fresh as your boy over here, you know what I mean? You guys go to WeDoLaundry.ca. They come to your door, they pick up your clothes, they wash, they fold, they dry, they bring it back unscathed. And if you use the promo code to the point, you get 5% off. And it's a great service. Skip and I have used it. It's very enjoyable and very convenient. Okay. And there's multiple methods of payment. You guys can, it's absolutely good. We'd like to thank them for sponsoring the show today. Now, I do have one question for you. Sorry, Skip, to cut you off before I get into you. But you see him coming down as a defensive player, like around the paint.
Mm-hmm.
Am I correct?
Yep.
Okay. And now, how effective do you think that could be to maybe propel the Toronto Raptors to maybe, I don't know, 8th?
Get them to the 8th seed?
Somewhere around there.
Oh, it could. I mean, look, outside of like 3 teams maybe in the East, no one really scares me too much now. Atlanta doesn't. The Knicks don't. Miami doesn't. Poeltl could be
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I do like the pieces they add, but that's a conversation for a different day. But here's the thing what Poeltl can do defensively as well. And Nurse, I think, touched on it. Not me. He's able to now gamble more on the wings. And they're going to be able to, more or less, if someone gets beat off the dribble, you have a 7-footer back there who's going to alter shots and or block shots at the rim. So guys won't be, like, we have someone 6'8" in front of us. No, you have someone 7 foot now in front of you who's in the 91st percentile defensive player. So it's going to be much more difficult for other teams to do that now, as opposed to before, quite frankly.
That's what I wanted to talk about later on. Skip, thank you, Coach. Thank you. Skip, why did the Raptors pick up Jakob Poeltl? Because I wish I had a little lamp or something that I can rub, because you said this last year that you would love to see Jakob Poeltl on the Toronto Raptors. Yeah, you did. I know you don't remember it.
I don't remember. I definitely didn't say it this year, but go on.
But now that he is here, why did the Raptors get him? Because you've been a proponent and a protagonist in order to get him. So can you explain to myself, the coach, and everybody out there why the Raptors got him?
Well, I think Coach touched on a lot of it. I think that the reorganizing of the defense is the main thing. I think the defense had kind of found its weaknesses, and it was not working anymore, and they needed some kind of an organizing principle, something at the center of that defense to protect the rim. I think secondarily is just defensive rebounding. You need a big in there to defensive rebound, and Poeltl can do that a little bit too. Not necessarily a crazy high level rebounder, but a guy who can be in that mix with some of the big bodies. Now, I will say, as much as his defense is lauded, I'll get to the offense in a second. As much as his defense is lauded, I will say that Wednesday game did not inspire a ton of confidence. Now, I don't know if that's a one-off. I don't know if that's because he knew he was getting traded that night and he had a lot of other things on his mind. He looked a little rough that game, turning the ball over, just getting beat on a few plays in the paint as a defender. I was watching that game. I was like, this is supposed to be our defensive savior. Like, I don't know if that's quite what I'm seeing. Now, I don't watch a lot of Spurs games. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. But I have heard whispers here and there that his defense has slipped off a little bit from, a year ago, 2 years ago, when he was really being pumped up as this high level defensive center. Now maybe being on a good team, hopefully, will sort of alleviate some of that. We'll see the best version of him. And I think another thing is the vibes, right? Like everyone's like Pascal, Yak are besties. I don't know if they're really besties, but they clearly seem to get along. And as much as we kind of get into this whole thing about, oh, players don't want to come to Toronto, players don't want to play here, yada, yada, yada. And I think most of that's kind of crap at this point. Like, I think a lot of players understand Toronto's a decent place to play, but it's still a different level when it's a guy who basically specifically requested to come here. Like, he had the option to go to Boston, and he was like, I'd rather go to Toronto. So I think that really helps, like, kind of boost the vibes in the locker room, maybe. I think just the idea of bringing in a player, from a player's standpoint, I've heard players talk about this. When your team goes out and acquires somebody, instead of selling off pieces, that can all by itself be a morale boost. That can be like, all right, we're going to war with these guys. We're not blowing up the ship. We're going to war with these guys. So that, I think, could just help from that standpoint. Now, offensively, I do have my concerns. I mentioned that I think the paint is already really clogged. I think it's going to be even more clogged. I actually think a radical way around that, going forward with this new roster, once everyone gets healthy, I think the name I've heard mentioned the most is the guy who's going to go to the bench is Trent Jr., which I don't really think works from a fit standpoint. I think from a fit standpoint, now egos aside, this is a larger question. I think from a fit standpoint, it would make a lot more sense to put Scotty Barnes on the bench, and have him come in off the bench and run that second unit as when the floor is maybe a little more open, when there's more room for him to operate. Now, I don't know if you can get him to buy into that. That's a whole other question. But I think that's sort of where I'm concerned with Scotty and Yak specifically being on the floor together with a guy like Pascal, and with some of the other non-shooters like Chris Boucher that we have on the roster. It's going to be tight in those quarters, and there's going to be some issues there. But I think they're gambling that the defense is going to be better and that they'll just find enough offense. Now, as far as I'll leave it there for a moment. I'm going to come back to it.
Skip, Roach, can I weigh in here? Because I want to get at you right now, Skip.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You talked about Jakob Poeltl's presence on the court on offense. Now, from what I see, just from my eye test, right? What I see from Jakob Poeltl is that definitely fills a hole and can open up for the Raptors shooters, such as Gary Trent, such as Scotty Barnes crashing the lane. You know, Freddie's gonna do Freddie, right? OG's gonna do OG, right? I see that the Jakob Poeltl in there, which Coach, you might want to agree with me on this one, is like from a coaching standpoint, once you see a player like that come in to the other squad, and now you have to dial up, because let's face it, every other team in the league sees what the Raptors are doing. They know it. So they know how to guard. They know how to fix it. They know how to get at them, hence the record that they currently have. So I think Jakob Poeltl is like maybe a key to get them there. But realistically, come on, guys. Like, they're not winning the chip this year. Okay? But
Makes them better
Jakob
this year, though. Yeah.
Jakob, yeah, it does make them better. It's an upgrade. It's like, I don't know whatever video game any of you guys play out there, but it's an upgrade, and I think the Jakob Poeltl acquisition for Khem Birch, and unfortunately, what was it? 2 second-round picks, correct?
And
Am I wrong?
Round pick. And a first-round pick. Top 6
Oh,
Protected first-round pick. Yes. So I think the Masai is looking long-term to see what's going on, but I don't know if, like, maybe some of you guys out there, you Raptors fans, there were trades on the table that could have happened for the Toronto Raptors to change the game. Now, I'm going to bring it to you guys because there were multiple trades, especially for OG going to New York, going to New Orleans.
Well, the two that were reported were Memphis and Indiana.
Memphis and Indiana.
Yeah.
And we also saw possible trades for Fred VanVleet. But what the Raptors have right now on their stat sheet, now myself as a businessman, I will say, I'm kind of curious as to what they're going to do for who they have to re-sign, because if they go to Freddie, OG, and Gary Trent, they're going to be spending a good bit of money. I don't know if they're in the position to be like the Golden State Warriors, where they don't care about the luxury tax and they can just spend whatever they want. They could just make it rain, right? So, guys, I want to ask you about, I'm going to start with you, Coach, about, and Skip as well, both you guys get in there, about possible trades that could have happened and how this might affect the Raptors' ledger.
Well, I mean, Anunoby isn't the most pressing need right now because he technically still is on the contracts or on the books for next year, too. Now, my guess is he's going to be gone this summer. I don't think you can keep a distressed asset past this summer. That's just me. With Fred and Gary moving forward, I mean, I think the question they have to ask themselves is, do you want to go into the luxury tax if you're below the 6th seed in the East? And my guess, the ownership will say no. Different if they were top 3 or something like that. And they did. They did win the luxury tax the year they won the championship with Kawhi and those guys. But they basically just punted all of the issues that they do have to the summer. And that's kind of risky.
Yeah, very much so. Skip, what are your thoughts on?
I have some thoughts. So, first of all,
I know you got thoughts, bro.
all,
We've been talking about this all day.
With regards to the trades that were made and were not made, I think, Coach, I've heard you say this previously, but I think once they got Poeltl, it was clear that they were going to look into being a buyer. And I think if they were going to go and do that, they might as well have gone out and gotten a couple more pieces, even if they were small, little, like, guards that were just, there were guys that were just getting flipped to other teams, like Reggie Jackson, the name that jumps to mind. I think Reggie Jackson would really help this team, and he was basically salary dumped and released. So I think if there must have been a way to sneak a guy like that onto the roster to sort of augment the Poeltl acquisition. Once you decided you were going to be a buyer. Now, I didn't personally want to be a buyer going into this deadline, but I'm fine with them taking that tack. I just think they should have done it a little bit more extremely. Now, going back to the Anunoby question, the Fred VanVleet question, I think it's very important in these kind of negotiations to have the ability to walk away, to have the ability to say, we're going to take what we want, and if we don't get what we want, we are fine holding on to this player. And I think with a young player like an Anunoby, and even VanVleet, he's not young, but he's not a really old vet. I think you can sort of say, all right, we're going to play chicken. We're going to say, like, yeah, we like this player more than, yeah, you offered 3 first-round picks, but guess what? They were all in 20s. We value we value Anunoby over those 3 23rd, 26th, 30th overall picks or whatever it was. I don't have the exact numbers, but that's sort of the gossip in the rumor mill at the moment. And the same with VanVleet. It's like the offer out there was like a decent young player and a pick, or a couple of semi-decent young players. And it's like, this is not exciting. This is a rental cost. This is not a team that's investing in VanVleet. So at that point, maybe you go back to the drawing board and you say, well, we like this player. We're going to invest in this player. The problem with doing that is then you get into the luxury tax situation. So I crunched some numbers last night, and I figured out that essentially, if the Raptors hypothetically, not that this is what's going to happen, but hypothetically, if they brought VanVleet back at his player option and Trent back at his player option, if they did, not that they will, and they sign Jakob Poeltl at $17 million, which is his cap hold, they would just sneak under the luxury tax or be very close to it. You might still have to buy out Thad Young, but it's very close to the luxury tax if you do that. The problem is that pretty much everyone out there thinks that Gary Trent's getting a few million more, VanVleet's getting a few million more. The numbers I've heard is 25 for Gary, 30 for VanVleet. This is all speculation. No one knows for sure. But that suddenly puts you $13-14 million in luxury tax. So the question is, are you willing to do that? And that's a big pill to swallow. Like you said, if they're a sub 500 team, I don't think a lot of owners are going to sign off on being $10-15 million in luxury tax with a sub 500 team. So I think that's one reason why the second half of the season is going to be really, really important to this group. Now, that said, there are a lot of people who think they're going to let VanVleet walk. I'm not necessarily one of them, but there are a lot of people who think they're going to let VanVleet walk. I think they're going to bring back Poeltl, and it sounds like they're looking to bring back Gary. So the other option, and this is going to be really, really, really tough to do, if you take those 8 players, the seven core guys plus Koloko, I think that works out to 8. Is that 9? Let me look.
9.
Real quick. I think that'd be 9. Sorry.
Yes,
Skip,
pressure.
come on, get to the point.
4, 7. Yeah. So by my calculation, you got 8 players. If you sign those 8 or 9 players, you can stay under the luxury tax. But that means you have to basically salary dump everyone else on the roster, which is going to be tough to do because it means you're going to have to send them to teams that have cap space. So specifically, that means salary dumping Chris Boucher, Otto Porter Jr., and maybe even Malachi Flynn, although he's not a huge contract. Now, if you can somehow find a way to get rid of those 3 guys without taking any salary back, which is a huge ask, it's probably going to cost you at least a couple second-round picks. Then there's a way to sneak all of your main guys in under the luxury tax with their raises and whatnot. But that means you're also getting rid of your Down Bantons, you're getting rid of your Wanchos, you're getting rid of pretty much everyone on the bench who you don't consider a core piece, and you're just filling those slots all with minimums. So that's potentially an option, but it's going to be really hard to find a team to work with to make that happen. Anyway, I'll let you guys jump in.
Yeah. Roach, you put up your hand. Are you, like Skip said, are you willing to do that?
Oh, I mean, this second half of the year is going to be crucial to see what this team does moving forward because you got Gary Trent is one that's interesting now. If they had made a move where Trent will still be starting, that might be different. Now he's going to be coming in off the bench, very likely, once OG is back. He's been pretty professional so far, but, does he want to do that moving forward, assuming they're bringing everybody back? I'm sure he wants to start. To me, that could change a lot if they bring Trent back or not. And I personally think he deserves to start. He didn't mind. I know he's the one that has to go to the bench, but he does have the skill set in which this team does not have. He's a bucket maker, man.
And there's that interaction with him and his dad, being a former Jays player. So,
former Raptors player. Former Jays player?
Yeah, we saw the Jays jersey. Come on, yeah. Skip.
I repeat what I said earlier. I think the most
wait, hold on. Skip. Let Roach finish.
No,
I'm just answering real quick. I think the most logical move from the roster standpoint is to put Barnes on the bench because I think that mixes up the skill sets so much better than putting Trent on the bench. But obviously egos get in the way, so we'll see if that happens.
Okay, Roach.
Yeah, I mean, is the bench better? Yes, technically, because you just move 2 players to the bench eventually. It's going to be Precious. It's going to go now, and then Trent will go afterwards. But I'm just a little disappointed with. They made the indication by signing Poeltl that they were buyers. So you automatically devalued this year's pick when you did that. Because because now that pick will probably be in the mid to late lottery or something like that if all things go well. And now next year, or for the next few years, the Spurs kind of have your first round pick right in a sense, unless next year you finish outside the top 6.
The Spurs have your first round picks for basically a decade, if you think about it, back to the Kawhi trade.
Yeah, it's almost like with Poeltl and not adding anything else. It's like baking a cake and forgetting to put the icing on. That's what this is kind of like right now, the way I look at it. It's like, we're going to be buyers. And then we're like, no, we're not going to do anything else on the bench. We're not going to address the shooting.
The one thing about the Poeltl trade is, man, I know people have said this on a few podcasts, but literally this exact trade was there a year ago today.
Yes.
The asking price a year ago today, as far as we know, was Goran Dragic and 2 first-round picks for Jakob Poeltl.
Skip, you said it last year. You wanted Poeltl last year.
But if you do the math, they ended up giving Goran Dragic and 2 first-round picks, along with a couple seconds, and there's a pick swap in there too, for Jakob Poeltl. But they only got 1 year of Jakob instead of 2 years. So, I mean, and they got that young out of it too. But, I mean, you could literally just unravel that entire trade tree and have done this whole trade last year. With all of the same pieces, the same seconds, the same firsts. You could have done all of this last year at the deadline. Like it would be Birch for Thad, it would be Dragic for Poeltl, it would be the 2 firsts going one way, the second going the other way. Like, yeah, it could have been done last year, and they could have used Poeltl in the playoffs last year. Let's be real. Against Joel Embiid, that would have been nice.
It could have happened. But guys, we're running low on time right now.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, that's an Armani. We're running low on time right now. So guys, Coach, you were the guest in our home right now. So is there anything else you would like to say? Because there has been so many things that happened in the NBA just this past week.
Well, the East became a little bit more complicated with Durant leaving, and I think that's why the Bulls, they never made a single move, and they're right there with the Raptors. I don't think the Wizards did much of any. I know they traded Rui to the Lakers beforehand, but I don't think they did anything trade deadline day as well. And then we get the Raptors that just added Poeltl. If it was me, I feel bad for Freddie right now, because once again we haven't given him a backup guard once again, he's going to be playing 40 minutes a night the second half of this season. The only thing I really would have looked at, the block must remove. If it's not there, don't do it. But I find it hard to believe that we could not bring in a backup point guard or a backup playmaking guard of some sort to help Freddie out, just to give another look in which you have a bit more offensive punch coming in off the bench. That's the only thing that I really would have looked at. If the deal wasn't there for OG, nothing you can do about that. From some of the alleged rumors that were out there, Golden State didn't want to part with Kuminga and other players and picks. Well, I'm asking for Kuminga if I'm Masai, and I want a pick too, so I got nothing against that. But I just wish that we would have been able to address getting a backup guard. We haven't had one in like 3 years.
Yeah, you know what? That's a great take, because we have spoken on this show multiple times about the Raptors need to address the center and a backup point guard multiple times to nauseum. Skip, do you have any final points?
Well,
that you would
just to respond to that.
Make one.
Well, I agree with his general point. I already mentioned that I would have loved to have Reggie Jackson, but I think with this move and with Precious being healthy now and presumably OG coming back soon, I think there's enough depth on the bench now that you can sort of paper over that. I sort of went through it in the group chat. I drew up a little rotation where you got Flynn as the backup guard, but he's only playing 8 minutes a night because you can rotate guys in. You can put Scotty in there. You can put Gary in there just for them stealing a few minutes. No, not Delano. I'm not putting Delano in this. This is a 10-man rotation with Flynn playing 8 minutes a night. Just spotting Fred for 8 minutes a night. I don't think he's very good at it, but he's something. and then you just paper over the rest of the minutes with your 9-man rotation. I think it's doable. I think after this trade, they have to really take a really good hard look at the minutes and say, all right, guys, max 33, 34 minutes a night, because they were getting run into the ground.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Can I make one final point?
Go ahead. Go ahead, Coach. Go ahead, Coach. Go ahead.
Masai in his press conference said they need to evaluate more. You've had 18 months and over 50 games this season. What more do you have to evaluate if we're noticing this? What are you guys looking at right now?
Yeah.
That's my only thing. I knew that would be the talking points of yesterday's stuff, but I think we've seen enough. I think they've seen enough to know what exactly this team needs, and maybe they just didn't want to pull the trigger on some of these deals and stuff like that. But I digress.
Some of those deals might have been like what was offered would not be enough. It would not be valuable. But before we get out of here, guys, time's running short. I'm just gonna leave you guys with this. I saw a rumor about Jalen Suggs coming to Toronto. Wow. But we'll get into that at another time.
Didn't happen. I saw the rumor too, but it didn't happen.
Yeah, he wanted to though. But Coach, thank you so very much for coming on the show. We appreciate it so much. It was great meeting you in person, and yeah, White Claw gang. You know how we roll.
Yeah.
Skip, you already know what's up, man. I'll see you. We'll talk. We'll deal with whatever. But more importantly than the three of us is you guys out there watching your Toronto Raptors, keeping hope alive. Remember that skip from In Living Color with Bob Hope? Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. You never know what the Raptors can possibly do and how they can possibly progress in the future to get to that next level, which is what we witnessed in 2019. And especially with the tanking of the Brooklyn Nets, we never know what can happen. And I hope you guys enjoy your Toronto Raptors. I hope you guys enjoy watching the coach from the East Coast, Mr. Tim Roache, and that guy over there, SimonBroder.com, the skipper.
Check it out.
Yeah, and myself, go find me at King Hussein on Instagram. It's been blowing up. So, on behalf of all three of us, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night, and
Peace.